Hunter. Blocked by Zion! Into the 7th row, trying a three. And the big fella would have none of it.
Called the Blue Devils IMG Radio Network, Williamson had 18 points. R.J. Barrett had 26. Number 2 Duke beat Virginia 81-71. 5th-ranked Kentucky edged Mississippi State 71-67. It was Michigan downing Wisconsin 61-52. North Carolina edging Miami 88-85. In golf, Paul Casey has a 3-shot lead at 15 under after 3 rounds of play of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Phil Mickelson is in second place, 3 shots off the lead. Hockey, Islanders edged the Avalanche 4-3 in overtime. Canucks beat the Flames 4-3 in a shootout. The Sharks down the Oilers 5-2. At UFC 234 in Australia, Israel Adesanya beat Anderson Silva by unanimous decision to improve to 16-0. First out of the Alliance of American Football is in the books. San Antonio gets past San Diego 15-6. Orlando, led by Coach Steve Spurrier, crushing Atlanta 40-6. This is Justin Shackle.
You can find us any time of the day or night at CBSSportsRadio.com.
Today, and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Welcome back. Good Sunday morning, Raider Nation. And welcome back to Las Vegas's only all Raiders all the time sports talk show. Oh, we're coming to you live, of course, from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios at CBS Sports Radio 1140, just off the Las Vegas Strip, of course, in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, the future home of the Raiders, of course, of the NFL Raiders. Hi, I'm your host, Scott Gulbransen, founder and publisher of silverandblacktoday.com. Today, joined by my co-host, NFL Draft Analyst for silverandblacktoday.com, Kelly Kriner. And we have another great show ahead. Despite being the, quote, off-season, unquote, there's still plenty to talk about, and we are going to do that today. Reminder, we are streaming today's show on the radio.com app, and trust me, if you don't already have this app, you're missing out. Make sure you grab it. You can listen to the best sports radio, music talk, you name it. Download it and listen to us live anywhere in the world. We are also back live on video today, so make sure you do that as well. And we're on YouTube, Facebook, our Facebook page, and on Twitter via Periscope. So if you go to Silver Black, the number 2 day on Twitter, if you're out and about and you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. Always a ton of listener and viewer chat happening in there, so make sure you check it out. So join Raider Nation from around the world and with us on our video simulcast. So check it out. Also, in addition, check out the website, silverandblacktoday.com. This week, Chris Reed continued his look at Raiders draft targets, and that'll continue this next week as well. We heard from our guest later today, Dr. Aaron Perlut, who wants to move the Super Bowl to Saturday. That's right, not Super Bowl Sunday, but Super Bowl Saturday. We'll talk to him and his reasons why. And Kelly introduced us, we're going to talk about this later this hour, to the Alliance of American Football League, which opened up their season and their existence yesterday. Make sure you bookmark and read silverandblacktoday.com. All right, so let's get started with some other information and tell you about what's going to be on today's show so that you're not lost, right? Okay, so we're here. Where the heck are the Raiders playing in 2019? With a deadline by the NFL looming this coming week. Here's the latest reports out of San Francisco last week into early this week had the Raiders in agreement with the folks at Oracle Park, home of the San Francisco Giants, to play there. Then the 49ers apparently said, no, you can't play. It's our rights in that area. They said, not in our backyard. Then the talented beat writer Michael Gilkin, of course, of the local Las Vegas Review-Journal, reported and talked to Scott McKibben of the Oakland Coliseum Authority and said, hey, the offer for $7.5 million rent is still there. And we're going to bring Scott McKibben on in the next segment. He's going to tell us where they're at exactly with the Raiders from the authority board. So make sure you check it out, and that'll be after the first break. But we still don't know where they're going to play. Also this hour, we're your daddies. That's right. Football's not over. We have yesterday Alliance of American Football. We're going to talk about that. Interesting rules and its role perhaps in becoming the de facto developmental league for the Big Brother NFL. I watched it, the entire San Diego-San Antonio game, and Kelly and I will tell you about that thoughts and read Kelly's story up on silverandblacktoday.com for Primal. What do you think about it? Call us 702-889-5978 is the phone number for you to join in and talk with us here on Silver and Black Today. Then we will kick off the second hour with, where's that? Oh, there it is. With the Super Bowl. Should we move it to Saturday? And Kelly, we've talked about this, and we're going to obviously talk about it with Aaron when he comes on. But Kelly, Super Bowl Saturday. I mean, he makes some good arguments. I know you don't agree, and we're going to talk about that. But
no.
Just a flat no, right?
No.
Okay. All right. So we have that, and we're going to talk to Aaron Perlut about that, about Super Bowl Saturday. He makes an economic argument for it. Kelly doesn't agree, as he just mentioned, and he'll chime in an interesting conversation with a great guest. You don't want to miss him. He will make you laugh, trust me. Aaron is part of the Underbelly podcast with former NFL quarterback Jamie Martin. Also, he is the founder of the American Mustache Institute. Yes, that is a real thing. We'll talk about that as well. Then, senior NFL analyst Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus will be with us. He laid out his latest mock draft after the Super Bowl, including where he sees the Raiders going come April as the league convenes for its amateur draft in Nashville. Does he see Mayock and Gruden? Does he see them going all defense, or does he see them perhaps mixing it up if the right player is there, especially an offensive player that they could need because they need a little bit of everything? Renner will tell you. Then we'll talk Raiders roster, what free agents, what rookies, what should you start studying as the movement in the NFL offseason gets underway and starts heating up over the next couple of weeks going towards the Combine. We'll close the show with Kelly's Corner. He's got some interesting conversation there. There you have it, Raider Nation. You're up to date. We've set topics on the table. It's now time for you to join in. 702-889-5978 is the phone number if you want to be heard. And you can be heard here on our show. We want you to tell us what you think and actually just tell us how you're dealing with the quote-unquote off-season. And Kelly, let's start with the Super Bowl. Okay, so we haven't been on since last week, since we were live for the Super Bowl at the D, Las Vegas, for their big game bash last week. But Kelly, the game itself, not great. That's being nice, right?
I mean, I didn't mind it. I mean, it wasn't, like, exciting, but it was, if you like defensive football, if you like two defenses making great plays, hey, that was right up your alley. Personally, I didn't like it because Sony Michel can't catch a football. I'm taking that to my grave.
And that certainly has to do with gaming. Yeah. But Patriots win again. How do you feel about the Patriots winning yet again, Kelly?
Oh, when the Patriots win, everybody loses. It's just a little piece of your soul dies every time. You know what? It's funny. Did you see the picture of Tom Brady with his daughter?
I did.
I saw that, and I'm like, for like a second, I'm like, okay, that's kind of, you can't beat something like that. He's sharing. Then I'm like, no, screw that. It's the Patriots. I'm tired of seeing them win.
But see, here's the thing, and I know Raider fans, since we're a Raider show, aren't going to like me saying this. And I'm not here to say that the Patriots have never cheated, because I know that not to be true because they got in trouble for it. But people who get so angry because of, and I don't like Tom Brady, I don't like the Patriots, plain and simple. I was rooting the other way too, not just because of betting, but because I didn't want them to win again. But it's hard to argue. Okay, if you cheated, sure, you got caught, whatever. How many times did you cheat and not get caught? How many times do people on other teams cheat and not get caught? I don't know. Excuse me. The reality is 9 Super Bowls, okay, 6 rings. You can't deny, first of all, number one, Bill Belichick's the best coach that ever walked the earth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any disagreement on that?
No. And that was always the argument I used to have back when I was in Indiana. It was like, do you want Brady or Manning? And I'm like, well, if I get Bill Belichick, I'll take anybody. Yeah. Give me Tom Savage and Belichick. He'll find a way to get me to the playoffs.
Right, and he's got the ability to get the most out of players, and that's what, to me, is amazing. And then when it comes to Brady, do I think he physically has the best attributes and talent of any quarterback to play the game? Absolutely not. I think there's quarterbacks that have been better who didn't even win one Super Bowl. But when you have a quarterback who has won 6 Super Bowls, to argue that they don't deserve any credit for that, or that they don't deserve some of the talk of being one of the greatest of all time, because I think being the greatest of all time is a mixture of what you do individually, but also what you do for your team. So when you win 6 Super Bowls, sorry, he's one of the greatest of all times. Dislike the guy immensely, but I think that Raider fans have their special reason for hating the Patriots, and I don't disagree with it. They were on the worst call ever, although we can talk about that another time, Kelly, because you have another theory on that. But the other issue, though, is, look, you got to just give credit. You can still hate them. I hate the Yankees. I hate the Yankees with a passion. The best Padres team that ever existed, 98, faced one of the best Yankee teams ever and got killed. So I hate them. But I respect them. They've won 27 world championships. So what are you going to do? You can hate all you want, but you have to give credit where credit is due and have a little bit of respect for it.
Yeah, and to be fair, the Patriots have only cheated on 3 of their Super Bowls. Because, I mean, if I've learned one thing from this year, PEDs work. You miss 4 games, you're healthy, you're ready to go, Super Bowl MVP.
Well, so you're thinking Tom Brady's a little false in his.
No, I'm talking about Julian.
Oh, Edelman now.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Hey, he was suspended the first 4 games for PEDs.
Yes, he was.
So he's rested, missed 4 games, so he's rested.
Yeah.
Juiced up. Bam, Super Bowl MVP.
Well, and the thing is, we got a couple minutes left here before we go to the break and then hear from Scott McKibben from the Oakland Coliseum Authority. The game itself wasn't great. Of course, it was low scoring. I like defensive games myself. So I thought, actually, I wasn't that disappointed that there wasn't a ton of scoring. I know people wanted, the Chiefs versus Rams kind of game where it was all crazy scoring and 55 to 43 or 55 to 51. Not so great, but the ratings weren't terrible. I think people jumped on that they were terrible, and they really weren't. I don't know. I think we in today's generation where we're bombarded by content, Kelly, we want the best of everything every time something's on, and you're just not going to get that.
Yeah. If you take out the New Orleans market, the ratings actually weren't quite as bad, but that'll sink you. Because, I mean, they made a concerted effort down there to not watch this football game.
They did, and we got to talk about that another time as well, because I think that whole pass interference, it's like, come on. Just
how do you blow a call that easy?
Hey, you know what? Human beings are human beings.
Do your job.
That's true. All right, well, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to talk with Scott McKibben of the Oakland Coliseum Authority. Where are the Raiders? They have a $7.5 million lease option on the table. Have they talked? Have they discussed it? Where are we with where the Raiders will play in 2019? That's going to be our focus here after the break. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. in Las Vegas.
Hey, this is Rodney Hudson. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
Welcome back here to Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM here in Las Vegas. Where will the Raiders play in 2019? It has been the question ever since the season ended, ever since the city of Oakland sued the Raiders for antitrust. We all know what's been going on. We've heard San Diego, we've heard Tucson, we've heard now this past week a lot about Oracle Park in San Francisco. But what people didn't know, and our guest joining us now is Mr. Scott McKibben. He's the executive director of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Authority. And Mr. McKibben spoke to the Review-Journal here in Las Vegas this past week and said, hey, the offer is still out there for $7.5 million for a lease for 2019. So, Scott, we're going to jump in, but thank you, first of all, for joining us here on the Silver and Black today.
It's nice to be with you. Thank you, Scott.
All right. So you talked with the Review-Journal, Michael Gelkin, excellent reporter there, this past week, and told him that you had communicated directly with Raiders president Mark Bedane that the $7.5 million lease offer was still on the table. At the time of our discussion now, have you heard back from them at all? Is it progressing, or where are we at exactly?
No, it's not really. It's not progressing. It's really not going anywhere, either forward or backward. Mark Bedane and I have exchanged a couple of emails. I, once again, made it clear to him that, we wanted the Raiders to stay and to play the last season or maybe two here, and that our offer was still on the table. They pulled theirs off, but we had always kept ours on. And that after he did all of his due diligence, once they came down to, decision time, that we'd be more than willing to sit down at the table and pick up discussions where they were and see if we can get this deal wrapped up and done. I think it's also important to point out that, the Raiders are a tenant of ours, which is the Coliseum Authority. We are not suing the Raiders.
Right.
The county's not suing the Raiders. The Joint Powers Authority, the Coliseum Authority, is not suing the Raiders. The city of Oakland is. And, it would be our hope that, when this is all said and done, that Mark Davis might, find a way to emotionally put the lawsuit kind of in a different bucket and say, hey, let's just do what's best for the team, the players, the fans, and everybody, and stay that last season or two and stay in Oakland.
Yeah, and Scott, I'm glad you brought that up because you have an exemplary background not only in athletics but also in the newspaper industry. So you know journalism really well, and the kind of reporting around this has been sensational, to say the least, with a lot of things happening. But I don't think anyone, until you mentioned it in Michael Gelkin's story in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, I don't think anybody really made the differentiation for fans and for people at large that you are not a part of the city of Oakland lawsuit. Is that something now, too, that you're going to be doing more of, to say, hey, listen, we're here, we're a separate entity, and while we understand the Raiders are upset that they're being sued by the city, we're a third party, and we're just trying to do what's best for us, as you said just a moment ago.
Absolutely. We're trying our best just to make sure that the fans and the public realizes that those of us who have this transactional, contractual relationship with the Raiders are not involved in this lawsuit. And that, we have forevermore wanted them to play the remaining years here. We still stand by that. And, a lot of businesses at some juncture go through litigation and lawsuits. But at the end of the day, you really don't want to go and disrupt your business model, every time somebody walks down has a lawsuit with you. On the other hand, I will say this. I understand Mark Davis's feelings and the emotions of it. Nobody particularly wants to be sued and then yet turn around and be a tenant at that facility. I do understand the emotions tied to this. But I would hope that when this all settles down, that maybe the emotions will be set aside and the decision will be made that, let's do what's best financially for the team, but also for the fans and for the sponsors and for the constituents that are all involved in this transaction.
No doubt about it. And I think all of us, even those of us here in Las Vegas, and of course we are on the other end of the spectrum, right? We are getting a team in about a year here. We're building a new stadium, and so things are in a much different place. But at the same time, doing a Raiders show here in Las Vegas and having listeners all over Raider Nation, as you know, there's fans not only in the Bay Area but all over the country. We've always agreed that the best possible location for the Raiders until they finally move to Las Vegas is Oakland. And that's what the fans want for that definitive last season or last couple seasons. But also something you touched on really importantly, I think gets lost. Not only the Raiders organization and having employees that work, these aren't the people on the field. They're not playing football, but front office people, ticket office people, staff, they live in the Bay Area now. And so for them, it's a crazy situation. But also you mentioned jobs. I mean, the Oakland Alameda Coliseum employs a lot of folks, and to know that you're going to have that tenant and those people are going to be able to work is an even bigger deal. And I think that's lost on fans a lot of the times.
Yeah, that's, as I said, we have about on game day with varying tasks, anything from security to ticket takers to ushers, to concessionaires. We employ around 3,000 people on game day. So without question, to us, it's of importance related to the preservation of these jobs and for the local economy. As I said before, we'd like to find a way to perhaps set all this emotions aside on both sides of the issue, let the litigation rest all by itself, and move on and just do a lease extension and move forward.
Yeah, certainly makes all the sense in the world. And with a deadline coming here very, very quickly, Scott, I know the NFL and the Raiders must finalize a schedule shortly. But I assume the authority, should Mark Davis come back to you and Mark Bedane come back to you and say, okay, let's get this ironed out, the authority is ready to move forward should they call and you're able to say, okay, let's go. Let's just start our normal protocol, what we would do gearing up for next season, correct?
That's correct. We have the lease extension. We have the terms. Mark Davis was quoted correctly a few months ago when he said, we had a deal we all agreed with the exception of when we learned that there was going to be a lawsuit filed against us. So, there's really not a lot more to discuss in terms of putting the deal pieces together. It's just getting past this whole emotional issue of the lawsuit.
Yeah, and that's understandable, and certainly a lot of things there, very personal things at play there, especially knowing how this has all transpired over the last several years. Now, Scott, with the site, with the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, we know that the Warriors are moving across the bay to San Francisco. The A's are there for now as well. What's next for the site and the planning that you and the authority have to do? What are you guys going to be looking to do over the course of this time as you get ready for a post-Raider world?
Well, we're still in the midst of some long and detailed discussions with the A's. The A's have told us that their first and most preferred site is the Howard Terminal site down on the water, but at the same time, in doing that, they would also like to acquire the Coliseum property and use it to put in another ballpark, not a full ballpark, but a ballpark that could be used for baseball, for soccer, for other recreational kinds of activities, but then all the other commercial development that can be done in and around it. Now, the anchor would be the arena. When the Warriors leave, we will continue to use the arena for entertainment. We will use it for big sporting events, one-time type sporting events. As an example, it's hard for us to do an NCAA March Madness regional final because of the lock-in dates and the hold dates that we had to provide for the Warriors. Well, that inventory from about the 1st of October all the way through the 15th of June is now open to us. So, we could bid on things like the Pac-12 conference tournament. We could bid on an arena football team. We can do a lot more on the entertainment and on the concert side of the business because, we now have every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday open to us, which in the past we have not had. So, the site has a bright future. It's going to be a matter of, will the A's build down on the Howard Terminal and then use it for our place for development? If Howard Terminal doesn't work out because of environmental or transportation or other, complicating issues, then they will come back to the Coliseum and they will build on the Coliseum property, and they will then do development in and around the new ballpark.
Oh, that's great. Well, and I know we here in Las Vegas have a vested interest now in the Oakland A's, as our Las Vegas Aviators are officially the AAA team for the Oakland A's. So that's part of the reason I asked the question, because I know that there will be more A's fans in Las Vegas as that AAA affiliation grows. And certainly the people here in Las Vegas, I know some people in the Bay Area are not happy with us for the Raiders coming here, but we love the Bay Area. We love folks. There's a lot of folks who've relocated here as well, and we wish you nothing but luck and the best of luck moving forward. And Scott, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
It was nice to be with you, and thank you.
All right, Scott McKibben, Executive Director of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Authority. All right, so there you have it. The latest on whether or not the Raiders are going to be playing in Oakland in 2019. Makes the most sense, but you never know what's going to go on, so we'll see what happens over the next few days, because they have to know by the 13th. All right, you're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. We'll be back. We'll talk a little bit more about the Raiders and 2019. Stay.
It's Dustin DeHart here with no.
CBS Sports Radio. The only way to take Silver and Black Today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
That's right. Anytime, anywhere, you can take us, put us in your pocket. Yes. We can live in your pocket at least for 2 hours every Sunday. Yes. Anyway, you're back here on the Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, and we just got finished talking with Scott McKibben, and Scott McKibben is from the Coliseum Authority up in Oakland, so he gave us a little bit of a background and kind of where we're at with the Raiders and the Authority. Now, the one thing that he cleared up, Kelly, there too, that people I think forget a lot is that while the Authority is not involved in the lawsuit, okay, so here's the key. People are like, well, and he made the point of saying, look, yeah, we're not involved. We're not suing the Raiders. Hey, we're not suing you. Come spend $7.5 million with us. But at the same time, the city of Oakland has to approve the lease if they agree to it. So even though a lot of people are out there saying, well, it shouldn't be an issue because they're not suing, it still is because the city of Oakland, who says the city of Oakland will approve it? Because it's gotten so ugly, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that like you said, that's the thing. At this point, nothing's happening without the city of Oakland's blessing, which
right.
is what's, yeah. And at what point does the Coliseum just be like, hey, it's $7.5 million. It's not like that we're overflowing with money in for not only the city but everything else. Just swallow your pride. This is probably going to happen whether you like it or not. Just let it go. Just, 1 year, you're out. We can move on after that. But the longer you drag this on, the more chance there are that they're going to wind up somewhere else. And then you're out not only the $7.5 million,
right,
but all the other revenue that comes in for the 8 home games, 10 if
correct,
you count preseason.
Yeah, parking. And then, I think one of the big things that people don't mention, and I know it's not necessarily like it's bringing Amazon.com to your town, but the fact is that people have part-time employment at the Coliseum when the Raiders are there. And so for them to lose the Raiders a year early, now they all know it's coming. They all know that, hey, they're gone, but you had one more year at least. And so those jobs, the revenue created by them, the income created by them too, is one of the things I think that gets forgotten. And I think at the end of the day, and we've said it along on this show so many times, that it was best for them to go back to Oakland for that year. Now, there's been some animosity with the lawsuit, and at that time, it's like, why do you want to pay somebody who's going to sue you? Well, you're paying the authority. You're not paying the city, even though the city has to approve it. So to me, it makes the most sense. And for the fans, mostly, Kelly, to me, that is the big deal. It is about, for this one, it's like you get the proper goodbye. Okay, the girlfriend broke up with you, and I won't get too graphic, but the girlfriend broke up with you, but she's going to throw you. She's going to throw you a bone, so to speak, before you leave, and maybe you're going out on one last dinner, one last date to say goodbye and to say, hey, you know what, we're ending this as well as we can. Yeah,
I was waiting to see where you were going with that one. I was like, okay, this could be interesting.
No. We're a family show. Yeah. But that, I mean, but you have another theory, and that is it might not have been terrible for the fans, but not so terrible for the Raiders and John Gruden and Mike Mayock if they maybe had just been a marauding, traveling band of bandits traveling and playing every home game in a different spot.
I think it would be beneficial for them because then you could basically just bottom out for the season. You've got that built-in excuse. Hey, we didn't have a home. We're bouncing around. And here's the thing, the NFL, you don't see tanking like you do in the NBA and everything. And I've got a couple theories why that is. I won't get into that now. But the Raiders aren't winning a Super Bowl next year. They might be a 6-win team if everything happens. And you know what? Being 6 wins sucks in the NFL because you want to win 1 or you want to win 15. You don't want to be in the middle, Yeah. And quarterback aside, draft picks are how you build that team. If you have the number 1 pick next year, you have your choice of anybody. You have your choice to trade down for multiple picks. That's going to be more important than a 5-win season this year.
No, I think that's true. Yes, there's last year even there was all the people about tanking. I don't believe in it. I think you do the best that you can. Look, their roster wasn't good enough, so they weren't going to win a lot of games anyway. And here they are at the number 4 pick. I mean, okay, yeah, you could have lost a few more games and been the number 1 pick, but I don't see any big difference other than thinking that you're going to get Nick Bosa without anybody bothering you if that's where you want to go.
You don't see a big difference between the number 1 and the number 4 pick?
Well, I do.
It's a huge chasm. Huge difference.
From a trading perspective.
Well, not from a player perspective.
I don't like Nick.
Well,
Yes, in certain years. I'm not a big Nick Bosa guy. Great player.
So you don't watch football. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay, Kelly's in love with Nick Bosa, but that's between you and Nick. But I think that what we see here with the stadium situation, Kelly, is the fact that if they can put their differences aside, so to speak, and actually it really comes down to, can Mark Davis let go of the animosity and the anger that someone's suing you and actually say, okay, for the fans, we're going to do this. I actually think he's going to. I actually think that Mark Davis will do that. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like him because he's moving the team and don't give him the respect that he deserves for the deal he got done here in Vegas. But I believe that he will do that, and I think they will play in Oakland. I don't think they're going to play in Levi Stadium. Again, I'm wrong all the time, but I just think it makes the most sense and it'll happen.
I just find it funny that the territorial rights that the 49ers won't give up for the baseball field, it's actually closer for them in Oakland to the Levi Stadium than it is if they're in the baseball field to Levi Stadium. It's like, so your territorial rights, you're actually going farther away, but nope, that's still our territory.
Yeah, and that gets to a different point, which is, you don't think rivalries like that exist in the NFL except off the field, or on the field, I should say. But the 49ers obviously just, I'm people on the camera, I'm doing my thumb. They're sticking their thumb in your eye and just saying, nah, you had a plan and you might have jumped ahead of your skis a little bit. So we're going to say, nah.
The 49ers just don't want to be outdrawn in their own city. Because more people.
Yeah, but they're open to Levi's. So
they don't care about being outdrawn in their own city when they're getting all the revenue.
Yeah, that's true. You're getting your rent paid basically.
I was gonna say there'll be more people show up to Raiders games and 49ers games. So they're like, we spent all this money on this stadium. Finally, we're getting something out of it. It only took another football team coming in here for us to see what a full stadium looks like.
By the way, did you see Jimmy Garoppolo's salary for next year? 25.7. Woo. Not bad for a guy who's not played a full season in the NFL.
Well, true, but that's the going rate for a
It is.
quarterback.
It is. It's just the money now blows me away. It's just crazy. But we're going to talk about that too a little bit, which is with the Raiders and their salary cap and everything that's coming up. They have a lot that they could do. And we have Jerry, who just said that he'd be willing to host the Raiders in Akron, Ohio. So they could play in the Zip Stadium?
I was going to say what's the name of that stadium? Oh, man.
I'm sure Jerry will tell us here on Facebook in a second. But, yeah, so that to me, the Raiders, the least of their problems really is next year. To your point, you really are going to sort of lose a year next year, and you want to make progress. I think that's the biggest. The biggest key is going to be, do they make progress on the field and with the roster? But outside of that, I mean – again, except for the fans in Oakland, it doesn't matter that much. They're not going to play in Nevada. And so I think we'll know by Wednesday where they're going to play, and I'd be willing, and you could set the odds for me, Kelly. The odds that they play in Oakland, I think, are pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah. I don't see any other I don't really see any other option. It's everybody. The NFL is basically going to come in, tell everybody, be an adult. This is a business thing. It's not personal. Fix it.
Yeah, and what do you guys think, by the way? Let me know. You can either tell us on Facebook. You can call in 702-889-5978 or on the YouTube channel, which is going crazy. We got Just Win Johnny. We got Aaron Hernandez. Stephen Bonsel's in there. Aaron and just beginning to get lively in there. So usually they argue with each other. Raider fans love to argue with each other. Good-natured most of the time. When it gets out of control, sometimes we step in, but not very often. So, but check it out and let us know what you guys think there as we think about where the Raiders play. I mean, Akron, Ohio. Hey, it might be as good as any place to play for the Raiders as well. But Kelly, when we come back from this break, brother, we're going to talk. You wrote this week about the Alliance of American Football League, which started yesterday and continues today with 2 games on CBS television. We're going to talk a little bit about that, right? Because for those of us who like to bet football and like to just watch football and whose alma mater is so freaking terrible in college basketball that you're disinterested, it gives us something to watch, right? So we'll talk about that when we come back. But you saw the ratings, and we'll update people on the ratings, right?
Yeah. I was a little surprised. They're a little better than I was expecting. Especially since most people didn't even realize that it had started. Most people in my bar yesterday were like, "What's that?" when they showed them on TV, and I told them like, "It's already starting." Was the most comments I got. Yeah,
that's right. So we're going to talk about the Alliance of American Football because there is no Raider football right now. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Have you visited Elko lately? Make your summer plans now to
Hey, this is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Tim Brown, yes, indeed a Hall of Famer. And as I always have to mention, I can't get away from it, Fighting Irish, go Irish, right? So an Indiana boy here, even though our website, Kelly, still has you as from Kentucky, which I know is not something that sits well with you. So we will definitely fix that.
Yeah, okay. I'll hold my breath over here, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so Kelly, now this week, you wrote a story about the Alliance of American Football. For those of you who might not have been paying attention after the fact that the Super Bowl ended last week and football was quote unquote officially over, it started yesterday. The Alliance of American Football League really. Bill Polian, of course, you guys know who Bill Polian is, former GM of the Buffalo Bills and a couple other teams, and long history in the NFL. He is the kind of driving force behind it. And he said during the interview on CBS yesterday that his goal was within a few years to become the developmental league, i.e. what the G League is to the NBA, the Alliance of American Football League would be to the NFL. In fact, he went as far as to say, Kelly, that he wants the AAF to become in essence, the place where the practice squad guys from every NFL team go to play. What is it about this league that you think maybe, and we'll talk about what we watched yesterday in a second, but as an overview, Kelly, for our listeners who might not be familiar yet, what is it about this league that maybe you say, you know what, yes, it's going to be like a minor league, but it has a better chance of succeeding than perhaps other things?
It's football. I mean, that's the basics. I mean, people love watching football. Obviously, you know, the NFL is always going to be the top because you want to see the best athletes. But if you're a football fan, you have no options. You know, you've got that dead period from February to August. And if it's a even halfway decent product, you will sit there and watch it because it's football. You know, there's a need for that for some people. You know,
yeah, sure.
I'm a diehard college basketball fan. I can watch the two worst college basketball teams play. And
so UNLV being one.
I would watch UNLV if it was on TV.
Just had to get my dig in.
And last night I had a TV in my bar dedicated to the I can't even say it right. The Alliance of American Football. I had that on there because I was fascinated to see how this was going to turn out.
Yeah.
And it's football. It's not great football, but it's football, and that's what I want to watch.
Yeah, and to me, that was it. I mean, I watched the game that we got here in Las Vegas because there is no AAF satellite feed for 4 games a week. It was the San Diego-San Antonio game, and San Antonio, I'll tell you what, they had a great crowd, and I say great crowd in about 25,000 for the first of a new football league in a town that doesn't have an NFL team. I thought was pretty good. I was surprised. I was not expecting that, but I think, as you mentioned, we talked off air, the curiosity around it's going to get people to come for 1 or 2 games, and then after that, you have to have something that they have to glom onto, whether it's players, whether it's good play. The San Diego-San Antonio game didn't have a lot of scoring versus the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, down in Orlando, put up 40 points and 5 touchdown passes.
And I
think
Steve.
Yeah, and I think that's, to me, what'll be good. But back to your point, I heard some national talk show hosts say that there's just too much football. There's just, you have the NFL, that's oversaturated, and now you have 1 week between the Super Bowl, and now you're throwing this minor league football at us. Is there such a thing, Kelly, as too much football?
If you don't want to watch it, there's 3,000 other channels you can watch something else. I want more football.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, next year when the XFL comes out, I'd like to see the XFL start after this is over. I would like to have 12 months of football because it gives me something to watch. If you think there's too much football, turn the other channel, brother.
Yeah, no, and that's true. But at the same time, too, I think that while I'm not a big minor league baseball watcher, I don't follow it religiously. I don't do anything to really keep up with it other than to watch players. I'm a Padre fan, so I watch who's coming up, who's coming down, who's doing well at AAA. Or I don't watch a lot of the G League other than former UNLV running rebel Steven Zimmerman, his family is good friends of ours, so I watch to see how he's developing. But I don't watch G League games. Like, I don't sit down. I'm not a big NBA fan anyway. But with football, I'm a little more interested because I start to see, well, geez, the Raiders are looking for guys, and since we cover the Raiders, I'm starting to look at some wide receivers. For example, last night in the San Antonio game, Kelly, there were some wide receivers, again, playing against different competition, so you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, but they look good, and you start to see, hey, maybe this is a guy somebody missed. Could 5 or 10 guys come out of that league and be on an NFL roster? Not start in the NFL, but be on an NFL roster as a role player.
Yeah, and that's the big thing with this league. It's just getting reps, because you can't get better if you're not playing. You can do all the stuff you want in practice, but you can't have like game speed and everything in a practice. This is giving these guys a chance to go out there, get more reps, show what they can do, and then, like I said, say you see something in somebody, it's like, well, hey, if we bring him in, our coaching's better, so we can get this out of a guy. Yeah, no, I think that's true, and to me, I enjoyed it. I mean, I got bored towards the end of that game, and I kind of went back to the hockey game because the Vegas Golden Knights were on. But overall, I think it's not bad, and I think they have the right. They're not the XFL. They're not trying to compete with the NFL. They're trying to supplement the NFL and have a deep relationship with the NFL. And to me, that's very different, and I think the right way to do it. It makes sense because the guys involved in it, the Bill Polians, the Heinz Wards, the Daryl Johnston, who's the GM down in San Antonio, those guys are NFL guys. So they want to use their relationship to do that. Yeah, this league's kind of like the NFL's a fine dining steak dinner. This is Outback. I love your analogy. This is Outback Steakhouse. Oh, it's good. I've had. It's not Golden Corral. I've had better. Yeah, but I'm hungry and want something. You want a steak? This fills that hunger. That's Kelly has great. I talked to Kelly a lot offline. We talk a lot about football. Great analogy. And so, although some people will argue that it's like that burnt 99-cent Whopper at Burger King, I don't agree. I think if you look at it from the perspective of it's football, I said to you when we walked in this morning that I thought it was just a little step above pretty good college football, right? And so it's Outback Steakhouse. It's Outback. There you go. But to me, that was awesome. I'm okay with it. I enjoy it. So it'll be good, I think, for us to have some football and to watch some of these guys. Some of these guys could be free agent signings for your NFL team next year for the Raiders. And at least you get to watch a guy, and you might see a guy and say, man, I like that tight end, and let's see where he goes and follow him, and maybe he gets signed by the Raiders, maybe he gets signed by somebody else. But nonetheless, it's football, and it's better to me than watching nothing. Or as I was getting my haircut yesterday, they had rugby on. No offense to people who play rugby, but I don't know anything about it, so it was confusing to me. Hayden's going to be mad at you now. That's Australian football. A little different, right? Anyway, all right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be joined. We're going to say, should the Super Bowl move to Saturday? Dr. Aaron Perlut will join us. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM.
anywhere.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. Busy morning already. We heard from Scott McKibben of the Oakland Coliseum Authority. He said not much has happened yet, although we don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes, but that was the latest. We also talked about the Alliance of American Football League, which was an interesting conversation. We're hearing from our folks on Facebook, and Wendy had a great little take. She said, watch most of it, not as good as college football. Sorry, the players are not as revved up. That's true, too, but it's new. But I like the analogy of the steakhouse, Ding Ding Kelly. And she would say Sizzler, which I didn't even know Sizzler still existed. But that's I think that's on par. I mean, I think to me, Outback is better than Sizzler. At least I remember Sizzler from 1980. But nonetheless,
Sizzler actually came up in a conversation the other day at work. Somebody brought that up, and the only thing I can think of is a white man can't jump. We going to Sizzler. We going to Sizzler.
All right. Well, we are now going to go out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line. And we're going to bring in Dr. Aaron Perlut. Dr. Perlut is part of the Underbelly podcast, a great sports and culture podcast, which you can find anywhere where you find podcasts. He hosts that with Jamie Martin, former NFL quarterback. He also, Dr. Perlut, is the founder of the American Mustache Institute. Check their stuff out. I've had involvement with the American Mustache Institute over the years. And so, but we're here to talk to Dr. Perlut today about moving the Super Bowl to Saturday. Aaron, welcome to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. He was there. We'll find him. Aaron, you there? Uh-oh. He might have dropped off. We'll go get him in a second. Aaron, you there, buddy? Okay. Well, we'll get back to him. But Kelly, the idea that you have the Super Bowl on Sunday, it's always been that way because right, the NFL is Sunday based. But Saturday makes more sense for some people because of work and all this kind of stuff. And Aaron will have his take on it. But you don't necessarily agree. You like the Super Bowl on Sunday. Why?
Well, I mean, tradition is one thing. I mean, it's always been on Sunday. NFL is Sundays are for NFL. I can't stand Thursday night football. I think it's a trash product. They need to get rid of it. I'm cool with Monday night, having one game a week off there, but the NFL is Sunday. It should stay on Sunday, And I read Aaron's article. When he comes on, I'll have some,
Yeah, well, and you guys, you can go at it here in a second, but part of Aaron's point, and by the way, you can go read his story, which is up on silverandblacktoday.com. Look up there for the spot. Is he on now? We got him. Okay, so we're now going out to St. Louis, Missouri. We bring in Dr. Aaron Perlut. Aaron, what's happening today, buddy? Okay, now we're not getting him. David Stepanian, our engineer, is working on it. David, we're having some kind of issue with the phone line. Okay, well, we'll get back to it. But Kelly, with Aaron, and reading his article, part of what he talks about is the idea that, listen, Monday is a terrible day for workers and businesses in the United States, in that there is loss of productivity because of the Super Bowl, because everybody's out. The Super Bowl starts at 3 Western time, Pacific time. It's 6:30 on the East Coast. By the time everything's over, you go to a party, it's 10, 11 o'clock, and you've been drinking and eating all day, and that cuts into it. What about that don't you agree with? I mean, is that a good argument?
I could see where some people would make that argument. To me, I don't think it's a good argument. I think, that's just another sign of how weak we are becoming as Americans and everything, that I can't stay up till 11 or 12 o'clock at night and make it to work the next morning. I mean, suck it up. It's one day a year.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no, I was out till midnight. What time do you go to work? 1? Guess what? Stay up and go to work.
Yeah.
It's to me, I want Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday.
So you like the tradition.
Yeah.
And even though we were talking in the off the air about how baseball and tradition, which is a whole different discussion, it's interesting. We got Aaron now. You there, Aaron? Aaron, are you there? Boy, we're having trouble with the phone lines today. I can hear him. He can't hear us, David. All right, well, we're going to work on it. And if for some reason we can't get him on, we will get him on either next segment or we'll get him on the next show. But back to your point about Sunday, I don't mind it on Sunday myself, but at the same time, I think he's got some argument there around the fiscal piece of it, which is if it really does cut into productivity, is that the business's fault? No. But if you own a small business and your employees are coming in, they're dragging ass, it's like not a good thing. So I could go either way on it. And again, I want Aaron to be able to explain because he's got all they did a white paper on it. So I'll let him. I didn't approach it from a scientific point. I like it in Vegas because it extends people's stay. It's good for us here because people tend to stay till Monday.
And that's the other thing we talk about the economics about, Saturday night more people will be going to games, you'll be buying more stuff. Well, no, because now you're cutting out Saturday, which is a big Saturday's a big night for everybody anyway. So you're
right.
Cutting into the normal Saturday, which is good for people. Sunday adds another day of revenue for bars, restaurants,
That's true.
Here in Vegas, hotels. So, instead of cutting out what's already a normal busy night for a lot of places, you're adding an extra night that week.
Aaron, you with us, brother? Aaron, you there? Holy moly. All right, well, we'll get that figured out. I can hear Aaron. He can't hear us. David? Okay. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, we'll figure it out. Yes, for Las Vegas, it's a very different situation. I mean, I think we look at it selfishly and think about it, but it's not something that we definitely have to change because we like extending weekends here. They make Friday, Saturday is always going to be busy in Vegas. We have everybody come up from Los Angeles, so we're used to that piece of it. But the reason I like it too, though, is I do like the fact that if you moved it to Saturday, Kelly, then what you're able to do is you're able to really build, I think, more events around it where some businesses just don't do it. And it allows you actually a day after as well to do some things which might allow you to be creative with not only television content and other things like that, but it will allow you to just get people a little more focused on it, don't you think?
Well, see, I would actually say the opposite because if you do it on Saturday, you're cutting out a day to do events.
True.
Because it's like I said, Saturday night events and stuff, like people go out, people do everything on Saturday already. Sunday's the day where usually nobody does anything. So the NFL audience, they want those people at home watching the game.
Yeah, and we're gonna move Aaron to later in the show. We have Michael Renner from Pro Football Focus coming up after the next break, and then so we'll try to get Aaron on right after the bottom of the hour as we work on our technical issues here at CBS Sports Radio 1140. So we'll do that. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have this discussion more. Carl on YouTube. Aaron's a little hard to hear. Yeah, because you can't hear it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. When stuff goes bad, it goes bad. It just happens. Hey, we're live radio, and
we'll do it live.
That's right. And poor David's over there going nuts trying to figure it out. He's a pro. He's trying to do what he's doing. So, but yeah, I mean, I think too that when you look at the Super Bowl and what's happening, you go back to the argument of the week in between. That they have the Pro Bowl the week in between and all that kind of stuff. So you have that buildup. I think that's brilliant, and I think you need to continue that. Some people have said, let's move from having the week off to going right from the championship game right into the Super Bowl. I don't think so. The business behind it now is so large that will never change. Now, the other thing has been that Roger Goodell has said that he will not change it to Sunday, that they agree with your point of view, which is it's tradition. We kind of like it that way. We're accustomed to that. And he threw in the extra day on Saturday, helps them with some events and things like that. So especially when you're bringing in big corporate sponsors, you have all those pre-parties, and I went to those when they were in Indy, the Giants and the Patriots, and I got to see all that. And it was a full. I was gone from 10 a.m. until midnight, going to all these different events. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. But we'll get his argument down at the bottom of the hour. What did you find? I thought, again, with the Super Bowl this year, the commercials, I think that's over. I think the commercial thing has jumped the shark. The PR before the Super Bowl is bigger than the commercials themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did like this year how they didn't leak the commercials like you've seen in the past. Like
5, 6.
Oh, there he is. I hear Aaron. Can you hear us, Aaron?
But it's still silent on my end.
Okay, so
completely
he can't hear
silent.
Okay, please turn him down. Thank you. We'll get him at the bottom of the hour. We'll take care of it during the break. So, yeah, they didn't leak out.
They didn't leak them, so you still got to see some of the commercials and things like that. I mean, it's not quite the big event that it used to be, but it's still fun to see what they're throwing out there because you're paying $5 million for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I want to, my favorite Super Bowl commercial of all time was E-Trade one year. They had two old guys in flannels and overalls sitting there with a monkey in flannel and overalls jumping up and down, clapping his hands. And it just said, and for like 15 seconds or whatever, it says, "We just wasted $3 million or whatever."
Yeah.
That was the E-Trade commercial. I will always remember that commercial.
Yeah. And to me now, it's just people are so distracted. We watched part of the game together on Sunday. And we had our phones, and you're watching TV, you're talking to people. There's so much going on now. I just don't think the commercials have enough oomph to capture people's attention anymore. So we'll see. All right, well, we're going to step aside. We'll work on our technical issues and try to get Aaron on after the bottom of the hour. Next is Mike Renner. He's an NFL analyst at Pro Football Focus. He's going to talk to us about his latest mock draft, which you can find on Pro Football Focus. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
scheme fit or other need. There's so many needs on the Cardinals. Might as well go with that guy.
Might as well get the best guy there, right? Is there another guy that you could see them perhaps, and this is just, of course, we're just guessing at this point, but if it wasn't Joey Bosa, if you're the Cardinals, who's the next guy you would grab?
So that's the thing. There are three, in my opinion, real blue chip players in this draft that, again, there's no sure things, but I'd bet money on these guys being not just good players at the NFL level, but elite sort of players. The other is Quinnen Williams, who can fit into any scheme in terms of his versatility as a defensive tackle, can play nose or three technique, highest graded defensive tackle we've ever seen in our college grading, 5 years of college grading. He has the highest grade out of Alabama. And then Josh Allen, just because the Josh Allen scheme fit in the 3-4 looks more like a 3-4 outside linebacker than Nick Bosa does. Josh Allen just can cover tight ends, can play off-ball linebacker if we really wanted him to, and also rush the passer. So the versatility aspect fits better to a 3-4. But again, I'm not going to pass over the talent of someone like Nick Bosa just because of the versatility might be a better scheme fit.
Yeah, we always have that conversation with folks who call into our show, Mike, is that a lot of people, well, the Raiders need this. They need a wide receiver. They need an edge rusher. And, of course, you do need an edge rusher. But if for some reason Josh Allen went before number 4 to the Raiders, which is where you have him falling right now, thinking the Raiders will take him if available, to grab a Quinnen Williams, as you just glowingly talked about, that's not a bad thing. I think at the top of the draft, people sometimes get focused too much on the need, especially when you're a team at the top of the draft. Like you said about the Cardinals, there's so many needs. You take really the most impactful player you can get, and that includes a defensive alignment on the interior. But a Josh Allen with the Raiders, if this all falls how you have it projected early on here, would he instantly help? I mean, obviously that pass rush, which was just atrocious last year for Oakland.
Yeah, he would obviously help that. In my opinion, he's the best athlete in this edge class in terms of explosiveness, agility, change of direction, there's a flexibility, that sort of thing. He checks every single box there. And he's 6'5", 260. He's the ideal build for the edge position. So he has all that going for him, has the on-field production at this point. And the thing is, he's still getting better. We saw how much better he got from junior to senior year. He has the work ethic to where I think he's going to continue to get better. If you told me in 5 years that he ended up being the best player from this class, that wouldn't surprise me. But he's not as sure a thing as the other two, but he has all the traits to become an elite player in the NFL.
Yeah, I think most Raider fans would be ecstatic to have Josh Allen holding up that jersey down in Nashville. Now, you had at number 3, the Broncos clearly looking for a quarterback. John Elway needs someone to go. And this is not the best quarterback class, obviously, but there are some guys. You have them going the Dwayne Haskins route, of course, the talented quarterback out of Ohio State, versus the Drew Lock. We've been hearing a lot that John Elway has been enamored with Lock. Why do you think they go the Haskins route instead?
Well, I think if you hear a GM's enamored with a certain player right now, that's a smokescreen at this point. You don't want, if anyone comes out saying that they have this guy at the top of their board, that probably means they're pretty low on them, because you don't want anyone to know where you're leaning at this point. So I have the Broncos going up that high because, one, if you're going to take quarterback in the draft, 99 times out of 100, you trade up to take that quarterback. You go and you get your guy. And Elway has never been able to go get his guy. He got stuck with Paxton Lynch, the third quarterback in that draft. Got stuck with Case Keenum, an afterthought in free agency. He's never gone and had the chance to get his guy. He's finally in a position to do that. I think Dwayne Haskins, while he has his question marks, is clearly has the potential to be a franchise quarterback, has the arm talent to be that guy. And so all of a sudden, I think the Broncos are a team that he just can't look his fan base in the eyes. With Case Keenum going into 2019, he has to do something. So I think this is the year they end up doing that.
Again, we're speaking with Mike Renner. He's the senior analyst over at Pro Football Focus. We are a subscriber. If you haven't checked out Mike's work and the website over at profootballfocus.com, make sure you do. Now, Mike, let's skip ahead to some of the Raiders picks you have. Of course, number 24, which they acquired in the Khalil Mack trade. The Khalil Mack trade people don't like to mention or talk about if you're in Raider Nation. But you have them taking Christian Williams, defensive lineman, out of Clemson, where I think some other folks have thought maybe at 24 or 24 to 27 they might go defensive back. Why go? What is it about Wilkins you think that fits in well with Paul Guenther's scheme with the Raiders?
Well, I think going back to the conversation of there's a ton of needs on the Raiders. I don't think there's a single position on the roster that if they drafted I would say that they wouldn't need. Even at quarterback, if they drafted a quarterback, I think you could still argue that they do need. Derek Carr has been good, but there's not shown that he's a surefire franchise sort of guy. You could upgrade basically everywhere along that roster, so you don't have to go somewhere with a certain pick if you're the Raiders. You just have to get the most talent you possibly can out of those 3 first-round picks. So if Wilkins does fall there, in which I've seen a handful of other backs have him falling out of the first round completely, I think that would be a steal for them. He was incredibly productive at Clemson, one of the best interior pass rushers and run defenders in the nation, is already incredibly strong. I think NFL-ready sort of talent that they just need that. Along the defensive line, they've drafted a handful of projects last year. Now get some guys who can actually contribute right away, and I think that's Christian Wilkins, who he is.
Yeah, definitely have some real good strength in there on the inside. Now at 27, you have the Raiders selecting cornerback out of Penn State, Amani Oruwariye. Is he a guy that really elevated his stock with the Senior Bowl and what he was able to do there?
Yeah, I think in terms of the secondary, he probably made the most money for himself at the Senior Bowl. We at Pro Football Focus tracked all the one-on-ones, graded all the practices. He had the highest win rate among cornerbacks in those one-on-ones over the course of the week in practices. And he has the traits that NFL defensive coordinators love. Long, 6'2", 32-inch arms, is going to be able to play press man coverage, which is the name of the game in the NFL these days. You watch the Patriots, how much press man they play and how well they shut down opposing offenses. I think that's what you have to do to be a top-tier defense in today's NFL. He has those sort of skills and has the athleticism and smoothness to be able to play the cornerback position at the NFL.
Yeah, no, definitely talented player. I loved watching him in the Senior Bowl, and of course throughout the week, watching and hearing things about him in practice too. Because clearly, that's not the Senior Bowl is not just the game; it's all of the other things you're able to see. And of course, the Raiders had the leg up, being able to coach in the game. Now, if we look at this draft, Mike, I think some fans, when they look at the draft, focus on the first 2 rounds, of course. In this draft, what's the biggest strength from a position standpoint, from an athlete standpoint in this draft, and perhaps what is it weakest in when you look at those first 2 or 3 rounds?
So I think it's strongest defensive line, obviously, but the thing is, I think it's strong in terms of they're all going to go early. I think half the first round could feasibly end up being defensive linemen, but then after that, I'm not sure second, third round you're going to get much value just because they're all so the top end is so rich that I think they're all going to go fairly early. After that, though, I think the wide receiver class is very strong in terms of the value you're going to get end of the first round, early, late second round. I think that's where a ton of value you'll see. I think a lot of guys who would be drafted in the second and third round can step in and be quality starters immediately from this draft. So I really like the depth at the wide receiver position. And I think offensive tackle actually is pretty deep as well. I know the Raiders sort of, shot their shot last year at that position, but I don't think you never have too much talent at the offensive tackle position because of injuries and how important it is in the NFL.
When you look at this draft and you look at the way the Raiders are set up, clearly with 3 picks in the first round, tell people, because a lot of Raider fans are saying, well, if we trade this, trade that. How often are we seeing trades now in the last several years in the first round where you see a team really jump up or move down to get more value in the first round?
So you saw last year 7 first-round trades last season, and basically if a team wants a quarterback, and I think there's going to be a handful of teams that want quarterbacks, they trade up for him. The only quarterback drafted in the last 3 years that a team did not trade up for was Baker Mayfield, and they couldn't trade up for him. They already had the number 1 overall pick. So right. Teams are going to trade up and go get their QBs, and so I do think we're going to see a ton of trades. And if you're the Raiders, I don't want to say that they have to start moving back, but I think that you just have so many needs. You have such a talent-bereft roster, as we saw why they're drafting in the top 5, that you can flip those 3 first-round picks into maybe 6 picks, and all of a sudden you have, can completely rebuild your roster. You don't need to knock 1 pick out of the park. You don't have to draft a Quinnen Williams. If you can draft, multiple successful defensive linemen or multiple linebackers, that sort of thing that can come in and start right away, I think that can give you more impact than, just 1 Khalil Mack or 1 Amari Cooper that can replace those guys. Get a handful. So I think they're in a good position with all these draft picks to create more, and just build a roster at this point.
Well, and especially if you look at it, Mike, the Giants need a quarterback. Obviously, you had them selecting Drew Lock at 6, and then the Redskins going with Kyler Murray, if he indeed plays football, at number 9. And so if what you could see the Raiders very easily just moving down a couple spots, but yet getting some value in those picks. So it'll be really interesting. We'll have to have you on from time to time, and then as we get closer to draft day, obviously. So we thank you for coming on, and we make sure you check out Mike Renner over on Pro Football Focus. Thanks, Mike.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Mike Renner from ProFootballFocus.com. We'll be back here on the Silver and Black today, right after this message.
CBS Sports Radio.
This is Cliff Branch, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time Pro Bowl, and you listen to the Silver and Black Show.
Oh, don't get me started. Cliff Branch should be in the Hall of Fame. There's no question. No one can question that. I'm sorry if you do. You're ignorant.
So
but anyway,
you
go
think
ahead.
he's better than Julian Edelman?
Yes. Yes, I do, and thank you for bringing that up because you know what? The talk about Edelman, as great of a game as he had, and he's a good receiver. Don't get me wrong; it's a little premature in my view. All right, we have gotten the technical issues worked out with the phones, thanks to our crack engineer who maybe are you on crack? Is that what the problem was? I don't know. No, he's okay. David Sapanian fixed the issue for us so that we can get one of our guests on, and that, of course, is Dr. Aaron Perlut. Dr. Aaron Perlut wants to move the Super Bowl to Saturday. Again, you can listen to him on the Underbelly podcast with former NFL quarterback Jamie Martin. Find it wherever you find podcasts, except for in the deep, dark ridges of quality content. No, I'm just kidding. It's a great podcast. I've been a guest on it before, so go check it out. He also is the co-founder of the American Mustache Institute. Aaron, welcome to the Silver and Black today. We finally got the phones worked out, brother.
Thanks for having me, and you are welcome to refer to me as Dr. Perlut.
Of course. Now, Dr. Perlut, the first thing we want to do is first give us your pitch. Why in the heck do we need to move the Super Bowl from Sunday to Saturday?
Well, this is something that I started railing on, I think, about 13 years ago. There was a Super Bowl being held in the glorious city that is Detroit. And I began wondering to myself, why is this game historically since 1966 been held on a Sunday night? And initially, admittedly, it started off as an argument for alcoholism because it's a sin. But when you really dig into the notion of moving a Super Bowl from Sunday to Saturday, there's a couple of factors at play, and I think that where you need to start is revenue, because the NFL begins and ends with revenue. They don't do anything unless revenue comes at play. And I think the reality is that if you think about the lost productivity on Monday mornings from people who miss work, and this past Monday after Super Bowl, 17 million Americans called in sick to work.
17 million?
17 million.
How does that compare to a regular day? Do you know?
It's just 1 million away. Usually it's about 16 million, but
okay.
By my own personal data. But then I think also the other big thing is that, when you talk to non-sports fans, there's the casual sports fans, there's the hardcore sports fans, and then there's the non-sports fans. And, there are people, I believe 39 million Americans watch or 39% of U.S. households are watching the Super Bowl. But you think of non-sports fans, and Super Bowl parties have become events. And the Super Bowl in and of itself has gone beyond simply just being the premier sports event in the U.S. calendar. It's kind of like an American holiday. I mean, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl is in the top 5 when you think about how Americans gather and celebrate and prepare. And then you have these non-sports fans that kind of bail on the game because they're like, I don't really care that much. I've got work tomorrow. There's no good reason for me to go. Now move that game to a Saturday night, typically a social night, typically a night that Americans gather with people and spend time and socialize. Think about how many more viewers the NFL could have watching this game, interested in the game, at least attending parties for the game, and the trickle-down economics of that, because parties become larger. When parties become larger, people go out and buy more beer and soda and chips and snacks and nacho dip and guacamole and whatever. And the reality is there'd be more people watching the game. You wouldn't have people calling in sick. And by the way, what I didn't mention about the $17 million, 17 million people that miss work, it is considered to be about a $4 billion loss from an economic scale to employers. So you've got money lost from the U.S. business community. You've got money sitting on the table for the NFL, because just imagine how much better a $10 million commercial could be as opposed to these terrible $4 and $5 million ones we're watching. So I just think it just makes so much sense.
Well, but the thing is, Aaron, so we have Kelly Kriner here co-hosting with me, and he's got a different take on that. I see all your point there. I see we're getting a lot of comments on our YouTube channel too about the fact that college football is Saturday. Surfer Bob is in fact saying you're full of garbage, so he knows you really well. The broadcast was great up until you brought him on. So Surfer Bob loves you, and he wants to leave us because you're on the air. But hey, that's okay. He hasn't seen the pictures of you yet. But anyway, the one thing I want to say about this is that yes, Sunday has been synonymous with the NFL, right, Kelly? So Kelly has a different view of that, and I want to get your reaction to what Kelly has to say. Hold on one sec.
Well, first off, when everybody brings up the productivity, can we get rid of this elitist attitude that productivity in this country only happens from 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday? People work weekends, people work Sundays, and two, just because you show up to work doesn't mean you're productive. I've dealt with this the whole 20
the post office.
The 20 years I've been in the service industry. Just because you're there don't mean you're doing anything. My biggest thing, though, is it's football. It is Sunday. I want that on a Sunday. They've screwed around with so much other tradition, having Thursday night football and everything else. I want my Sunday, And the economic impact, Saturday's a night where everybody goes out and does everything anyway, so you're cutting into a day for bars, restaurants, and everything that are already making money, already having those big nights. You're adding, it's like a 3-day weekend when your Sunday's big because you've got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So what about that, Aaron? What about the argument, especially, and you addressed this in your article up on silverandblacktoday.com, around tradition and the Sunday and the fact that, okay, Monday doesn't mean it's a productive day just because there was no football on the day previous?
Well, I think, let's start with the I think the one argument I couldn't agree with more, and I think it's really valid, is the piece about bars and restaurants on Saturday night versus Sunday. There's no question that, you do have bars and restaurants that are already full on Saturday nights. And so if there was going to be one metric that would dip, it would be that one, because Sunday night is not typically a night where people go out to dinner as much. So I do agree with that. But I think it's superseded by the overall impact of the traditional non-football fans that would be engaged. When you brought up tradition, I think that's the real key here in this conversation, because I read a quote by Roger Goodell, and I think anyone who pays attention to the league recognizes that honesty is parallel to Roger Goodell's universe, like wearing pants are to mine. It just doesn't. The two don't equate. And that he was basically talking about how the numbers just don't work out for Saturday night. And I think we all know that's false. I think we all know that this is about tradition. And tradition is the big key to why the NFL doesn't want to move the game, because the NFL is this league that is steeped in tradition, and everything about the NFL is tradition, tradition, tradition. It's why for years and years and years the league had trouble getting away from this and denied the head injury argument. It's all about tradition with the NFL and, their giant PR machine that really jams every one of these ridiculous messages down your throat.
Aaron,
but the thing is, if you look at major sports traditions, though,
they
have changed dramatically over the last quarter century, whether it's the World Series, the NBA championship, even the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl has been, they're trying to mess with this horrendous game because they want to get people to watch it. So, I think changing tradition is not out of the question.
Yeah, no, and Aaron, it's an interesting argument, and definitely we have some listeners who vehemently disagree, but that's what it's all about. And we'll keep up with you, man, and see how this is. You're going to be contributing over on silverandblacktoday.com. So thanks for joining us, my man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
All right, that was Dr. Aaron Perlut. He wants to move the Super Bowl to Saturday, which apparently, Kelly, a lot of people don't like the idea. We'll listen to that when we come back. We'll also hear Kelly's Corner at the end here. He's got a subject he wants to talk about. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
CBS Sports Radio.
Help us talk the silver and black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbransen, on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM, coming from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios. Our last segment of this Sunday, the first Sunday without NFL football. We still have football. We talked about the Alliance of American Football earlier in the show if you missed it. By the way, you can catch the entire show. We'll have the archived version of this show up on our website this afternoon, and we tweet that out, and so do that. Also, we had some graphical and some typos with Scott McKibben's name, so we're getting lots of reminders. Thank you. We are human. We do make mistakes, but thank you. I love Raider Nation because they always let you know when you've made a mistake, and that is very much appreciated. That's why I love them so much. So, yes, so we have that. And also, a lot of people, I think the Super Bowl to Saturday discussion, to me, it's always interesting because there's Aaron had a serious side to what he was saying, but it's also tongue-in-cheek. I think a lot of people don't think of it as tongue-in-cheek, and then they get all worked up about it, and had a guy who doesn't want to listen to the show anymore because the guy, he said he's so ignorant. Okay, hey, there's lots of content out there. Enjoy yourself. Kelly, but you have, before we get off the Super Bowl to Saturday thing, you have a good idea on how we can fix that without moving the Super Bowl to Saturday.
Yeah, it's like I said, I want to keep the Super Bowl on Saturday. If everybody wants that extra day off. If I'm Roger Goodell in the NFL, I just go to Congress and have them move President's Day to the first Friday instead of the first Monday instead of the third Monday of the year. Then I just put my schedule around that. Because, it's an easy fix. You know exactly what day that's going to be on 21 weeks before you start the season. They've moved it once before. I think it was 1970. It went from the 22nd, which was Washington's birthday, to just the third Monday because they wanted more 3-day weekends for government workers.
Themselves.
You're still getting a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
And it's after the Super Bowl. So, to me, that's an easy fix.
It makes sense.
It just takes an act of Congress.
That just assumes Congress would actually be working and not shut down and all that stuff. But that's a whole different discussion for KXNT, which is our talk and political station. But, Kelly, this is your time, Kelly's Corner. What do you got for us today?
We just finished talking about the tradition of football and changing some traditions. There's one that I think the NFL would probably – the teams in the NFL for sure might want to look at and consider. And, the Raiders have one major free agent. In my opinion, they have one major free agent that they have to look at, and that's Jared Cook. And I'm thinking, what about if that decision was made a little easier for them? If the NFL would move the draft up a few weeks and then have free agency after the draft. The Raiders, 3 first-round draft picks, early second-round draft pick. Say a tight end that they really like falls to them in the first or second round. Or say they like Dax Raymond, they grab him in the fourth. Now they no longer they no longer have to really decide, is Jared Cook, are we giving this guy $10 million for 2 or 3 years? There's always a player in the draft that slides that shouldn't. There's always a team that's grabbing somebody that they didn't know they were going to get. I think this could be big in roster building for the teams because free agencies where the mistakes that really hit you or hurt a team because so much of your salary cap goes into the hiring.
Yeah, you make one bad decision there. Now, it makes all the sense in the world, and I don't disagree at all. Although there's one big thing that would prevent that, and that, of course, is a organization that begins with a U.
Yeah, the Players Union, I could see where they would fight this because you've got your veterans that are going out there trying to get that free agent money, trying not to get cut, trying to stay on there. If a team has a chance to replace you with somebody younger and cheaper, they always will. And by having the draft first, teams will have a more idea of who they can cut, who they can keep, and I think it will end up costing veterans a lot more. It'll cost veterans more jobs because, especially when money's involved, you can talk yourself into a 6th or 7th round guy instead of a backup linebacker, a backup lineman. An NFL team can consider this a lot easier. If you don't know you're going to get that guy in free agency, you're going to sign that guy. Well, we need this here. We might not be able to get it. Just give him a 2-year deal. Give him a 1-year deal. But like those guys are the ones that are going to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I like it too because I think for an NFL team to know going into the draft specific needs, and then so we need a tight end. You're using the Raider situation. You have Jared Cook as a free agent. We need a tight end because we need a young tight end because you have to develop talent even if you're going to sign a guy. But if I draft a kid and then I go to negotiate with Jared Cook and Jared Cook just won't play ball with us, and again, I'm not saying that they won't sign him or that they shouldn't sign him. I'm just using this as a hypothetical. If I can't get him, then at least I know I have young talent coming in and I save the dollars and it changes what I'm going to do in free agency. I might say, Jared Cook, I might give him $8 million but that $10 million, the extra $2 million, I can't because I need to do this. I just drafted a tight end, so I'm going to use the rest of that to go out and get a veteran tight end maybe as a backup, whatever it may be. So to me, the scenarios, the point is, though, will either side blink and allow them, because they look at it as an advantage to management, they look at it as an advantage to the players, per your point about the union. I just don't know if they can ever come to an agreement on that. Now, the new collective bargaining agreement is going to come up next year, so maybe it's time to talk about it.
Another side of that, too, on like the team side, say like a guy falls that you weren't expecting. Say you kill this draft and you're like, wow, we got our 3 biggest holes here or whatever. We're one piece away. You might overpay for that free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be good for the players because, you got 2 or 3 people fighting for it. And it's like, well, we need DeMarcus Lawrence. That's all we need. We're going to overpay for him. Or we want Jadeveon Clowney. He's the last piece for this. We're going to overpay for him because we got these guys in the draft. We shored up the other spots. We can go bigger on one. So, I mean, there are benefits to both sides on it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's the thing. It'll be interesting. I think with the collective bargaining agreement coming up for 2020, you're going to have issues like this, free agency and the such. You're also going to have marijuana because marijuana is now legalized and people are using it medicinally. Because I had one NFL executive tell me that they believe fully that there will be some sort of exemption for marijuana. I don't know what the parameters will be, but certainly it'll come up, and so it'll be an interesting year, right?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that's going to be a sticking point. How much revenue will the players give up to get marijuana off the banned substance list? Because that's what it's going to be. I mean, the owners will be like, "Listen, we'll put that on there, but we want X. We want this."
It's always negotiation.
And for the players, I mean, how much do you want to give up for that?
Yeah.
And when you're talking the grand scheme of all this stuff, it's going to be a small number.
Yeah.
But I think it would benefit a lot more players.
All right. Kelly Kriner, man, thanks for coming in again.
Yeah, no problem, man.
I appreciate it. All right. That's going to wrap up today's show, everybody. If you want to keep up with us, make sure you stay connected. Visit silverandblacktoday.com. Follow us on Twitter, silverblack, 2 day, and check out our podcast available iTunes, Google Play. Subscribe today so you don't miss a version of this show or the podcast. For my co-host, Kelly Kriner, for engineer David Stepanian, we sign off, but we never say goodbye, Raider Nation. Thanks for listening, and until next week, may the autumn wind always be at your back. See you later, everybody.
The law office of Michael A. Troiano is a proud supporter of all